Today we're gonna have a chug battle between the 𝗦𝗦𝗘𝗏𝗂 and the Headrush MX5. What's up everybody, welcome to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Taylor and today we are having a chug battle. For those of you who have seen one of my chug battle videos, essentially what I am doing is I'm putting two pieces of gear up against each other. I'm gonna play through each, kind of show you some of the features of each one, and then at the end of the video, we will shoot them out in a mix so that you can hear them side by side. Today's chug battle was voted on by you guys. I put up some options for a chug battle video, and the most popular one that I put up, I made a mistake. I actually already made that video. Whoops. So I went with the second most popular option, which is the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 versus the new Headrush MX5. They are both in a similar price range, and I got the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 hooked up now. Let's just dive right into it. So right off the bat, one of the things I really enjoy about the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is it has a really nice, beautiful screen. It is not a touch screen, but the screen and the user interface is really nice, and it's really easy to navigate and set up patches with. And I'm gonna be adding cabinet IRs to this in post. If you're not familiar with what an impulse response is, essentially it is a digital copy of a speaker that you can use in place of a guitar cabinet. Both of the effects units that we're gonna be looking at today allow you to use your own impulse responses, so I'm gonna record the signal out of these with no cab IR, and I will be adding that in post, and I will put text on the bottom of the screen so that you know what you're listening to. Another really big plus that we have for the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is it has a tremendous amount of options in terms of amplifiers and effects. And some of my favorite here being the 𝗧𝗛𝗔𝗡𝗞𝗦, which is a diesel VH4. We're gonna need a noise gate here. You can go into the input block and turn your noise gate on that way. The nice thing about using the gate on the input is it doesn't take up one of your effects blocks, and on the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, those are really limited. And probably the worst thing about the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 in my experience is you can actually max out the DSP on the unit really fast. DSP stands for digital signal processing. It's the memory that the unit has to load different effects and stuff like that. And once you start loading enough effects, you run out of DSP really quickly, and it really limits the amount of things that you can put in your signal chain. But if you're a guy like me that just likes an amp and an overdrive, it's usually not that big of a deal. Preemptively boost this thing here and tube screamer like that. This is what it sounds like. I like turning this deep parameter up here a little bit to add some low end in, and we can actually cut down some of this bass. Just a really awesome sounding amplifier. Here, let me show you some of the different effects we have in here too. And just one thing worth mentioning too, you do sort of have these assigned spots here. So, you know, one block is always gonna be your cabinet block. One block will always be your amp block. You do have like your wah and your volume kind of pre-assigned to your signal chain. But then you do have these blank spaces here, and you can assign whatever you want to those. Let's go in here and assign a delay. And there is a lot of really cool delays in here. You'll notice when you start running out of DSP, because the names of certain effects will be opaque and you can't select them. It doesn't look like we're having that problem here. Let's do a multi-head delay. Kind of missing something there for a lead tone. Let's go over here and change this dynamics. And look, we're already seeing some of that DSP limitation here. When I go from auto filter, it goes straight to voice box. I cannot select the Asheville pattern filter. We're just gonna go with a phaser here. We'll set it something like that. It sounds really good. I really like the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. I like how big it is. I think it's really awesome if you're gonna use it as an actual floorboard because it has a full-size pedal on it. Everything is well lit and color-coded and really easy to navigate. And there are a ton of great reasons to like the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. The big shortcoming just be that limitation in the DSP. All right, let's hook up the MX5 and play around with that one a little bit. All right, now we have the new Headrush MX5 hooked up here. We'll set this up the same as the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 since you can include your own impulse responses. Look down here for the impulse response that I'm using and what you're listening to. Now the Headrush does have a touch screen. It has MIDI in and out. It's got a lot of really great options, especially for its price range, which is $400. If you didn't see my initial impressions on the Headrush MX5, it kind of blew me away. You can use the dials over here to help you edit if you want, but I kind of like using the touchscreen, so I'm gonna add in an amp. And right away, one of the downsides of the MX5 is it does not have nearly as many amps and effects as the Pod Go has, but it is still a very young product, and I have a lot of hope for this in the future. I think its strengths definitely outweigh its weaknesses. A lot of really cool stuff here. We're gonna go with one of my favorites, the SLO 100. Really awesome sounding amplifier, probably one of my favorites in the MX5. Again, let's throw a boost on in front of this one. We're going with a green JRC overdrive, and it looks from the little icon here that we have some sort of tube screamer type drive. Let's go in and change these settings. Full drive mode. Okay, now there are a few really cool features that I want to touch on with the MX5 here. Number one is that if you select the amp block and you click this ×2 button here, you can actually run dual amps, which I think is just such a cool option and not something that's super common, especially with units in this price range. So maybe we want to run our SLO 100 with something, let's just have fun. Let's do something interesting here. Maybe we want to run it with like a Marshall JCM 800 lead bass mod. Sounds pretty cool. Let's boost this guy up here quite a bit. We're gonna totally just crank up that master volume. So that's a really cool feature. It's one of my favorites, and I think it's just really cool that in this price range, you can blend tones together to get a more unique tone. Like maybe you want to blend the sound of a Marshall and like a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier or something like that. You can do that here. And then I'll quickly touch on the effects here. I mean, there's a good amount of effects here. We do have like quite a few different modulations, quite a few different delays and reverbs. And of course, like on the Pod Go, there is an effects loop. So if you want to connect this to, you know, your favorite effects pedal, you could do it that way as well. And while it doesn't quite boast the same amount of amps and effects as the Pod Go, there is still more than enough to get the job done in here. And in my experience, you don't seem to run into that DSP limitation. I've actually filled up every block on this unit with effects and amplifiers and done some really interesting routing with it, and it takes a lot to hit that DSP ceiling. But just for funsies, let's throw on a delay. I really like the shimmer reverb on this unit a lot as well. So let's just throw those at the default values. The quality of the effects is great, and although there aren't as many as there are in the Pod Go, I still think it's a really great value for its money. And like I said, with this being new, I have a lot of hope for this in the future being updated with more amps and effects. Really, in my eyes, that's the only downside right now, is you don't have the robust options that you would have in something like the Pod Go. All right, but enough of my subjective opinion. Let's shoot these guys out in a mix and see if one pulls out ahead of the other. right, so what do you guys think of the MX5 and the Pod Go? Do any of you own these units, and do you prefer either one of them? Let me know down in the comments below. Just to recap on the things that I said before, I think with the Pod Go, its biggest strengths are its form factor, and then just having all of the Line 6 amplifiers and effects from the Helix included in there. I think that that's a really strong selling point, but there is a huge DSP limitation, which might hold you back if you want some complex signal change, which doesn't seem to be a problem with the MX5. And I think the big limitation on the MX5 is right now, as of today when I'm shooting this video, there aren't as many amps and effects as I would like in it, but there's still enough to get the job done, and it also has a dinky pedal. Maybe that matters to you, maybe it doesn't, you know. No shame if you like small pedals. All right, guys, if you like this video, make sure to hit the like button, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys. Whoa.